Thanks, everybody. We are so thrilled to have Amelia Nagowski here. She came up from the Cape. She's a music specialist. She teaches music. She's going to maybe share a little bit of that with us today. She's a New York Times best-selling co-author with her sister. She wrote the book Burnout, Unlocking the Secrets to the Stress Cycle. We thought we could all use this, and we're really looking forward to this interactive presentation.
Yeah, there's some.
Fantastic.
Hi, on Zoom.
Zoom, I'm going to share my screen with you. Here I go.
Share sound. Yes. I'll try some video. No. Sure. Do you need help?
No. Okay, we're good. And then have you talk right into that mic and then.
Absolutely. It does need to be turned up. Oh, it's right there. Thank you.
I am going to be a musician for a hot second here. And one of the reasons that it is so hard for people to use microphones is that they don't know how to use them. So if you are ever confronted with a microphone, always use the microphone, no matter how much public speaking or theater you have, always take the mic and really use it. So one thing you want to ask is this a unidirectional or omnidirectional microphone? This is a unidirectional microphone. It only works if I talk into the top. If I talk into the side, you can hear the difference, right? It's not as good. This is a so if somebody hands you a microphone, you can ask, is this unidirectional or omnidirectional where I can speak from any side? Yeah. And you do want to, especially if there's any echo or hiss or this like that's in this room, just talk a little bit slower and make sure your consonants are really sharp and crisp. So now you all know. Number one, I've only been talking for 2 seconds and you've already learned something. Okay, so yeah, my name is Amelia Nagowski. I have a doctorate of musical arts in conducting, this kind of conducting, not the kind on a train. And so I've already given you my musical tip for the day. There are going to be some songs today. So the purpose of the songs is not only to make it less stressful feeling when we talk about stress, because sometimes when we talk about stress, it feels really stressful. We're not going to do that. It's going to be a very lighthearted and fun. But then the question is asked, how did I get from a doctorate of musical arts in conducting to being an expert in burnout? And the answer is this person. This is my identical twin sister, Amelia Nagowski, who already had a New York Times bestselling book called Come As You Are, The Surprising New Science That Will Transform Your Sex Life. Yeah. So, yeah. So she was writing that book when I was in my doctoral program. And in my doctoral program, I ended up in the hospital with what turned out to be just stress-induced illness. And Emily drove down from, Northampton to where I was living in Waterbury, Connecticut, and just brought this stack of books about how to manage stress and, peer-reviewed journal articles, because that's, peer review is how we show our love in my family. And so when she wrote that book, Come As You Are, and she went on tour with it, talked to women all over the world, and they kept saying to her, yeah, all that sex science is great. But that one chapter that really stood out was that half a chapter about stress and feelings. And I reminded her, hey, that time I was in the hospital, when I learned all that stuff, it saved my life. And she said, we should write a book about that. So we did, and it's called Burnout. It's the book we wrote for me. Today we're going to talk about concrete, specific, evidence-based things you can do to manage the actual stress in your life. And we're going to talk about why we're not already doing those things. And we're going to talk about how to overcome that barrier. Before I start that, I just want to say that the panelists all gave such awesome advice and wisdom. And I wanted everybody to make sure that they know, since you all have copies of Burnout now, that what's the worst that could happen? If that sounds hard to you, that's chapter 2. Be a mentor, if that sounds like a lot of work, that's chapter 3. But bust through and why it's hard is chapter 4. Having a vent person, people on your bench, a deep bench, and people to remind you is chapter 6. Taking time off for family, Netflix, and ice cream is chapter 7. And imposter syndrome and being confident is chapter 8. So whatever you heard that sounded like, oh, I'm not, I need to know more. There's at least a starting place in burnout, which you have. Yay, resources. So we're going to start with what burnout is, and then like what actually, we need to start with what burnout is and what wellness is. So burnout, pardon me, happens because of the stress response. Basically, especially for the people in this room, burnout manifests clinically as emotional exhaustion. It's not a medical diagnosis. It's not a mental illness. It's just the experience of exhaustedness of your emotions, not necessarily your body, although that sometimes accompanies it. So what's an emotion and how do you exhaust it? An emotion is a cycle that happens in your body. All emotions are, even hunger, right? Love, anguish, awe, it all happens because there's a stimulus out in the world and your brain responds with a set of neurochemicals and electrical signals that change the systems in your body. The emotion of stress is this cycle. Imagine yourself in the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness, and you're going down to the water hole, getting some water, and there's a hippo, arguably most dangerous animal in the world, definitely cutest, most dangerous animal in the world. And it's running towards you, and it's gonna get you. What happens inside your body? The stress response, flood of glucocorticoids and adrenaline and epinephrine, and all of that changes every system in your body. You'll be aware of your breathing getting deeper, of maybe your heart pounding a little bit more, but there's stuff that happens below the level of conscious awareness also. For example, your immune system just shuts down. It's like, you don't need me right now, because who cares about malaria when there's a hippo? Your reproductive system just takes a back seat, because who cares about babies when hippo? So your body has its priorities set by this autonomic response that's just happening because that's how we evolved to do things. And so we use all of that flood of neurochemicals and electrical responses to get more blood to our muscles so we can run, fight. We're not fighting a hippo, or flight. Your body knows which one's going to help you most. It is more complicated than that, but for the sake of time, I'm sticking with this. So fight or flight, we run, we jump, we leap, we climb through the rocks, find the cleft in the rock so we can get ourselves finally to safety. And we look out and we see that the hippo is walking away. The hippo's given up, we have escaped, we are safe. And how does that feel? The sun seems to shine brighter all of a sudden. We love our friends and family. We want to go home and hug everybody and jump up and down and tell the story and then write a song about it to sing and dance together around the fire that night. That is the feeling of a completed stress response cycle. So when you exhaust an emotion, that's going to happen these days because we are no longer chased by hippos. That's not the kind of stressors we face, but we also we can't solve our current stressors with fight or flight, or even freeze or fawn. Mostly our stress response that's programmed into our body cannot help us when our kids just will not put on their shoes. We give a 10-minute warning and a 5-minute warning and a 2-minute warning, and then it's time to go. And where are their shoes? They went upstairs, they brought them downstairs. They're sitting by the front door playing with this thing, and they're not, why are your shoes not? So in that moment, fight or flight are not choices for you, because society needs you to be patient and calm in that moment. That's the correct response. It's not inappropriate in that moment to take your rage and your frustration and stuff them in a little closet in your mind. Not bad for you. It's not going to stop you forever. And also there's a lot of stressors that we cannot control at all. white supremacist, cis-normative, exploitative, like capitalistic patriarchy. It doesn't sound so bad when I sing it, so sometimes I just resort to that. Stuff we cannot control, stuff that we can only chip away at during our lifetimes, knowing that our only capacity during our lives is to make a little bit of change, to make it a little bit easier for the people who come after us, and maybe their children's children will live in a world without the kind of oppression that puts lives at risk day to day. But alas, our body doesn't know that. Our body perceives threat and it floods every system that we have with adrenaline and glucocorticoids and cortisol. And our bodies all changed, but the fact that we live in the society we live in means that we can't do with fight or flight. We have gotten stuck in the middle of the cycle. We had to stuff the rage and the frustration and the fear into that clause in the back of our minds in order to smile and be polite and sound intelligent and to actually get change made in the world. Unfortunately, that's not great for our bodies because now we've gotten stuck with all these chemicals in our bloodstream. The tension that our muscles held stays held unless we actively make efforts to unhold it. And that means dealing with the stress that is the cycle that happens in our bodies in a separate process from dealing with the thing that caused our stress. We think, this doctoral program, just a random example, this doctoral program is really hard, but once I finish, I'll be fine. I'll just power through, then I'll be fine. As if getting rid of the stressor would also get rid of my stress. That's incorrect. When you graduate from a very difficult academic program, it takes years to recover and become more yourself. So let's talk about how to actually do that. And we're gonna start with, yes, the most efficient thing for completing the stress response cycle is physical activity. It's fight or flight, right? It's what you're preparing you for. So when I'm being chased by a hippo, you run. When the white supremacist, is heteronormative, exploitative, late capitalist patriarchy is coming for you, what do you do? Yeah. So speaking body language to tell your body that it's safe is the easiest thing to do. This is not accessible to everyone. Some people have physical disabilities that mean that this is not accessible or helpful for them. Some people just don't have logistical access to physical activity. If you are a woman and you're gonna go for a walk, like you might get catcalled, and now this like stress relieving walk has turned into a new source of stress, right? If you're trans and you go to a gym and dare to use a locker room, you could be taking your life in your hands. So it's not as easy as physical activity will help eliminate your stress. It's much more complicated than that. And yet, for most people, it is the most efficient way to do it. So we're gonna do an easy thing. I'm gonna sit on the table. Yeah, seems sturdy. Okay. This is called lock, flop, unlock. Actually, would you mind standing if that's comfortable for you? Anybody who's comfortable standing, we'll do it standing. This is a thing I've done with my children's choirs especially, but all my choirs really, and it's very effective and very fast. So the first thing we're gonna do is lock all our muscles from the top of our heads all the way down to our shoulders, biceps and the forearms and the hands, and all the way down to your abdominal muscles squeezing in, and your butt's clenched and your thighs are clenched, and your knees and your calves and your ankles and your toes, and you're gonna just tense everything, and then you're gonna flop down and be just total spaghetti. My children's choirs love this part, it's their favorite. But the rule I have to set for them is you have to stay standing when you flop, because they're thrilled to just throw themselves on the floor. Me too, kids. So this floppy feeling of like my body is not even really holding itself up, that's really, really loose. And you can't stay like that forever. But also we're gonna lock back up, lock from the top of your head to the shoulders, torso, abdomen, butt, thighs, calves, feet, tight, lock. And then instead of flopping down, we're just gonna unlock. Just to a point where you're kind of in the middle, in that balanced place of a little bit of uplifted energy still flowing through, but not locked tight. Another thing that's an easy illustration is if I tell you to stand like a soldier, chest out, gut in, everything pulled tight, right? People think that this is correct posture, and unless you're in the military, it's not correct for like your body. So if you go from that position and just unlock the stuff, your chest stays lifted up off your, the stuff in the viscera, and which makes everything sort of function better. So if you can go from locked and then experience flop, then lock, and then just come to a place of unlock, that is enough. Does anybody feel a little bit different now than they did 5 minutes ago? A little bit different. Okay, have a seat again. I'm not going to be standing that much more. By the way, thank you all for being so brave to do all the weird stuff that this purple-haired lady says. The next, and you're all going to be so glad to hear this, and also dismayed to hear this, that you can complete a stress response cycle in your sleep. A good night's sleep, you can wake up feeling better. I used to think that when people said, oh, sleep on it, you'll feel better in the morning, I thought that was deeply condescending, because the problem is not going away while I sleep. The stressor is not getting solved just because I slept on it. But what's happening when I'm asleep is that my brain, going through REM sleep, reorganizes memories and new information. And what that's allowing my brain to do is to complete unfinished stress response cycles. And this is not just from the day, although famously, whatever happens that day, you can be improved on. Like there's the Tetris research. You spend the whole day playing Tetris, and then you sleep and you dream about Tetris. And then you wake up and you're better at Tetris than you were before you went to bed. That's the kind of processing that's happening in your brain, not just of this stuff recently, but of your 8th grade bully. And all that unresolved stuff also gets completed in your sleep. So how much sleep do you need? 7 to 9 hours. I learned 8 hours. So when it turned out that I'm a 9-hour sleeper, I thought I was lazy, broken, because we impose this morality on wakefulness as though it's morally superior if we are awake than if we are asleep. It's not accurate. It turns out humans need 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and that range is totally normal. I am a 9-hour sleeper. My identical twin sister needs 7.5 hours of sleep. I'm kind of jealous because it gives her a real advantage in the world. She fits in to the expectations better than I fit into the expectations. But that doesn't change that sleep is good for my body and she's getting the sleep that's good for her body. It only changes my relationship to the world. And that's a little spoiler for what the barrier to curing burnout is. This next picture of Godzilla is here because this is the first time I learned how to do this thing, and it is imagination. Your imagination can initiate a stress response cycle, which you already know because when you go into a slightly fraught situation, or even if the situation is not happening and you're just imagining worst case scenarios, and your heart actually beats faster, your hands actually get sweaty, your digestion actually gets all wibbly. Not because there's any danger in sight, but because you imagined a potential danger. Some people get a little bit of actual stress reaction when I'm telling the hippo story, right? Or even when I just say the words white supremacy, patriarchy, it initiates just a tiny bit of stress. And that's because your imagination knows how to produce it. But the good news is that your imagination can complete a stress response cycle also. Here's how I did it. That's why Godzilla's up there, to remind you of this story when I was in my doctoral program. And I learned that imagination could complete a stress response cycle. I started going to the gym like always, getting on the elliptical machine just like always. I'm a good girl and I do what I'm told. Physical activity is not actually all that effective for me in terms of relieving the amount of stress that I have. But instead of watching TV or reading a magazine on the elliptical machine, I imagined myself as Godzilla tromping on the parking lot and the 20-minute walk from the parking lot, or the bus with all the undergrads. And I demolished that campus where I was getting my doctorate. And I got off the elliptical machine and I was like, I feel ready for anything. And the sun shines brighter and I love my friends and family. And I wanted to tell everybody this awesome story of what I had accomplished in my imagination. That is the feeling of a complete stress response cycle. And you don't actually have to destroy the campus in order to feel the relief that happened. And you don't even have to guide yourself through it. If you have a book or a movie that you like to watch that makes you cheer like out loud or cry or just feel like you've had the victory along with the hero of the story, then that is guiding you through the stress response too. Just because it's happening in your imagination doesn't mean that it's not happening in your body. If you feel the feelings, and the feelings are happening because emotions are cycles that happen in your body. And as an extension of that is creative self-expression. And we're about to have an example in a hot second, and I get to whip out my ukulele. But for the meanwhile, all you need to know is if you have a hobby of making anything that you enjoy that makes you feel like better after you knit a little hat, you're like, I made this hat out of my rage. And it's just, you get to take all the feelings from someplace deep inside you and you put them outside someplace safe. And you might experience that as literally true, or you might just feel better after you make the thing and not really know why. You just know that this helps you. This is why when your therapist says that journaling is good therapy, it's not because grammar or creating sentences is good. It's because making a thing and pouring your stuff out onto a page out of your body where it's giving you tension and disease, you're going to put it someplace safe, someplace outside of you. The number one trick for this is don't turn it into a side hustle. If you really like it, don't make it monetary, don't make it a competition. I say as a professional artist that when the thing that feeds your soul starts to put food on your table, your relationship with it changes. It's not the same. So don't turn it into a side hustle. Or if you accidentally keep turning things into side hustles, do stuff you're bad at, something that you're terrible at. You'll never be good enough. You'll enjoy it, but you'll never be good enough to like sell it. I horseback ride. When I ride horses, I'm terrible. I'm terrible. My identical twin sister came to a lesson with me once, got up on the horse and sat on it. And my instructor was like, wow, Emily, I've never seen somebody just so naturally find the good. I've been having lessons with her for 2 years. I have alexithymia. It's a condition where I have like a clinical inability to sense my body. So I don't feel bad about it because, you know, whatever. But then you have your identical twin sister who can do it. The point is, do something you're bad at and will never be good enough at to make a side hustle. The next one is a big old cry. Along with sleep on it, I always thought that, oh, have a good cry. So patronizing and condescending because just because I cry doesn't mean the problem will be solved. Crying doesn't solve anything, right? Well, no, crying doesn't usually solve the thing that caused your stress, but boy, can it deal with the stress in your body. My sister, again, very in tune with her body, used to come home from high school and like slam the door behind her and just start sobbing and throw herself to the ground and cry for like 3 minutes and then get up and be like, going on with her day. And I was like, how? I had to learn from my therapist in like a therapy session. It took a woman with a PhD from Yale to show me that a good cry works. And so if you're like me and you're like, well, how does a good cry work? The trick is not to keep feeding the crying the thoughts about the thing that started the crying. So for example, I can't believe she said that. I can't believe he did that. You stuff that in a box for a second. That's the problem. We're not dealing with the thing that caused your stress right now. We're dealing with the stress itself. So you turn your attention toward the stress itself and how it's showing up. Hey, how many tears are falling? How much tension do I feel? How hot am I? How much fluids are oozing out of my face right now? And you don't judge any of it. You don't evaluate any of it. You just notice. And the crying is a cycle, so it ends. I thought that how could I stop crying until the problem is solved? I thought I had to, or that if I stopped crying or I stopped working until the problem was solved, that I had given up or that I didn't really believe. Nope. Turns out the thing that causes your stress and the stress in your body are separate things. Separate things. Along with a big old cry is laughter. I'm gonna have to put the microphone down in a second, but the kind of laughter that works is not polite, posed, social laughter you use with your boss. It's the ridiculous, open-mouthed, abdomen crunching, like eyes watering, uncontrollable laughter that makes you like a little embarrassed, it's ridiculous. That's the kind of laughter that moves your body physiologically through the stress response cycle. And I have a song to show it. Is it plugged in? Did I turn it on? Why won't it fucking work? Are the cables old? Is the connection loose? Why won't it fishing work? I'm so annoyed, so annoyed. Why won't it flapping work? Okay, is my sensor selected? Is my webcam on? Why won't it flicking work? Did I join with audio or click on mute? Why won't it flushing work? Yeah, I'm so annoyed, so annoyed. Why won't it fluting work? Every time I think I know what to do, it never fracking works. I reset what I expect, then something new goes wrong. It never flopping works. Still I try, still I try. Someday I'll make it work. It's based on a true story. And it's an excellent example of like a funny thing that just sort of makes you feel a little better. And the good news is that even if you don't engage in like the really outlandish laughter that completes the stress response cycle, just like a little lightweight joke can make you feel like a little elevated, a little bit lighter, a little more released. Just remembering a time that you and a friend just totally lost it can also have the same like lightweight, uplifted feeling. So that we have physical activity, sleep, imagination, creative self-expression, big old cry, and ridiculous laughter. And this is people's favorite. Connection can complete a stress response cycle. This includes just a little lightweight, I'm gonna sit down because I'm tired. This includes just a little lightweight social contact, like, you know, going into the coffee place and saying, hey, I'd like a vanilla chai latte, please. Ooh, I like your earring. And your barista says, thank you very much. Here's your vanilla chai latte. Just that casual conversation is enough to remind your body that the world is a safe place and that you are not physically in danger right here, right now. You want to go bigger and deeper. Oh, this is chapter 6, by the way. That's the like getting the people on your bench and people who you call your A-list. This is that. But also, if you want to tell your body that it's safe by connecting with others, you could have a 20-second hug. So this is a potentially awkward long time to hug somebody, but if you really love and trust them, it's actually like a nice long hug. And it's not about the 20 seconds. It's about connecting your body to somebody else's. So what you do is you each support your own center of gravity, you put your arms around each other and you stay there. It doesn't have to be 20 seconds, but it's until you feel a physiological shift in your body. And after some teen kind of seconds, you do feel something's different and your body has been reminded, oh, I'm safe. If you want to go even bigger, there's the 6-second kiss. And again, it's not about the 6 seconds, but 6 seconds would be a long time to kiss somebody unless you really love and trust them. And John and Julie Gottman, this is their research, and they say it's long enough to be a special moment, not long enough to make the kids late for school. Not 6 seconds necessarily, but something long enough to feel like, oh, I am connected and something has shifted and something has changed. And that is how you get that big, deep physiological relief and completion of a stress response cycle through sleep. So that's 7 evidence-based, concrete, specific things you can do to feel better, like right now. And I wanted to define what that wellness is, because a lot of women have asked us, me and my sister, so like, is this how I get to just like peace, of like having peace and maintaining peace in my life? And the answer is no, you're not gonna maintain peace. Peace as an enduring state is a lie. It's like perfection doesn't exist. Wellness is not being at peace. Wellness is not a state of mind or a state of being. Wellness is a state of action. It is the freedom to oscillate through all of the cycles of being human. So we're here in this deep, dark cave, Because when we feel stressed out, we feel like we're crawling into a cave of emotion and we're just stuck there. But doing all the stuff we just talked about and the stuff we're going to talk about as I go along can get you out of the cave. So we're going to spend the rest of this crawling out of the cave. So the barrier that comes between us and doing, look, who here already knew that exercise is good for you? Not surprised. So I'm like talking about it and you're like, yeah, thanks, Amelia. So glad I'm spending an hour of my life listening. Right? Yeah. Did anybody already know that sleep is good for you? Yeah, you did. You already knew. So why aren't we doing them? That's the reason I had to write this book with Emily, because Emily could tell me all the things to do. And I was like, okay, but do that in a doctoral program full of old white men who are telling me that the stuff I want to study about emotional connection in music and like heuristic study of scores, they're telling me that's not music because the establishment of me. Okay. Anyway, I had to show her that people can't just do that. We have to take into account, while we were writing the book, moral philosopher Kate Mann wrote this book, and we were like, that's the perfect framework for the reason people are not already doing the stuff they know is good for them. And she is a moral philosopher, so she posits a world where there are two kinds of people. There are human beings who have a moral obligation, she's a moral philosopher, moral obligation to be their humanity, to be themselves, to live it, to express it, to acquire whatever resources are necessary in order to accomplish that. And on the other side, there are the human givers who have a moral obligation to give their humanity to the beings, to give their time, their lives, their bodies to the givers, to the beings. Now, being a giver who feels a moral obligation to care for others is not bad for you. As a matter of fact, if we filled the world with human givers, what would it look like? Pretty nice. Everyone would feel a moral obligation to care for each other. No one would slip through the cracks. No one would burn out because there'd always be somebody there to say, hey, you've extended yourself too far. Go take a nap. I'll bring you a glass of wine and cook dinner, and then we can eat and talk about our feelings. That doesn't happen when the world is full of human beings. If the world were full of human beings who feel a moral obligation to acquire whatever resources are necessary to be their humanity, we would have a world that looks like it does now, where it's led by people who are inherently acquisitive and self-entitled, and they really feel like they're completely entitled to the givers' time, lives, and bodies. So being a human giver, not inherently dangerous, but what Emily and I called human giver syndrome happens when we exist in a system where there are human beings. Oh, hey, by the way, just to be totally clear, human beings, human givers, in a book called Down Girl, The Logic of Misogyny, which one do you think she meant the women were? Yeah. Nobody ever thinks that it's men who are human givers. Nope, we already know. So human giver syndrome looks like believing that you have a moral obligation to be at all times pretty, happy, calm, generous, and attentive to the needs of others. And that if you at ever time fail in your moral obligation to be pretty, happy, calm, generous, and attentive to the needs of others, then you are a failure as a person. That your failure means you deserve punishment. And if nobody's around to punish you, we'll go ahead and punish ourselves. And if you believe that these are not symptoms of a syndrome, but rather just real and true and normal, and oh, of course the world is like this. Yeah, that's just the way the world is. That is a symptom of the syndrome. So how do we cure human giver syndrome? Well, since human giver syndrome creates a gap, nay, chasm between who we are and who the world expects us to be, we have to bridge the gap. This is another song. Are you ready? It's called The Abyss. Who does the world say that I should be? And what do I do if I don't agree? Rational me says that I am enough. My primate brain says not fitting is rough. Solutions are clear, I should be my myself and deal with your world when it puts me through hell. Or easier still is to be what they say. That only requires I give my soul away to the other. Because I have no bottom range today. To opposite goals here, low. To opposite goals here, ask you to choose. Whichever you pick, there's something to lose. But you're not alone, we're all on this road. And going together is a journey of hope through your bliss. Sorry. I am not an alto today. I don't know what happened to my low range, but is the actual song. So while human beings, we don't just create this abyss. Let's just the abyss, by the way, is where imposter syndrome comes from. Oh, I forgot the microphone. The abyss, by the way, is where imposter syndrome comes from. Not because you are an imposter or that you are trying to work beyond your ability levels, because the world actively tells you, explicitly tells you that you do not conform to the expectation and therefore you are an imposter. You're not doing it to yourself. It's not because you're wimpy. It's not because you're neurotic and something's wrong with you. No. Imposter syndrome comes because we are given imposter syndrome intentionally by the outside world. So when you feel imposter syndrome happen, it's not a you problem. So the world is causing it problem. So how do we fix it? We're gonna do 3 cures for the human giver syndrome. The first is instant gratification. And it's moving together in time with a shared purpose. So this includes, yes, team sports. As a musician, that makes me sad to say, but yeah, team sports are really good. Moving in time together with a shared purpose. Even if you don't play on the team, if you're in the stands with a bunch of really enthusiastic fans, you still get to move with them and experience the cycle. Worship, singing in a choir, playing in a band, dancing together. All of these things create that magic trick. And I'm gonna show you, and we're all gonna have it right now. Just take note of how much stress you might feel right now. Great. We're going to look back at this moment and be like, oh, I can't believe I feel so much better now in a minute. We're going to do a thing that I do with my choirs called the countdown shake. What we're going to do is count down backwards from 10 4 times, backwards from 9 4 times, backwards from 8 4 times. Yeah. And with each of the repetitions, we're going to shake an arm, a hand, foot, a foot. Got 10, 10, 10, 10. Got. It's clear, right? Even if it's not, you'll pick it up. Here's the one rule that you have to follow. You have to count down backwards in your good news voice. So you see somebody down the hall, you just got great news, you want to share it, and you go, good news. Can you practice it right now? Go. Oh, that was fantastic. That was really good. So just try to remember to be louder than me, because I'm just one person and I'm putting the microphone down. So be louder than me with your good news, okay? Ready, count from 10. All right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Now from 9, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, think back to how you felt 2 minutes ago. Does anybody feel like a little lighter right now? Yeah, this doesn't work if we're not all in the same room together, because human co-presence really is a necessity for literally everybody. extremely introverted and like I'm autistic and being around people is very stressful for me, but even I need human co-presence. So I guarantee all of us need human co-presence at least a little tiny bit. And the lockdown, called a lockdown, and we know that the language of lockdown is the opposite of wellness. It's not the freedom to oscillate. It's not oscillating from autonomy to connectedness, from labor to rest. It's just all one thing. And people who are extroverts and like need a lot of social contact in order to be their best selves are still recovering, even if you're back out in the world. The trauma of isolation is literal starvation. So half the population was starved for a year and a half. And it prevented the spread of disease, which is great. I'm also a COVID long hauler, so yay, thank you for, is it off? Is that a battery? I thought, no. Sorry. That's okay. So yay for not spreading disease, it definitely saved lives, but it also means that extroverts are carrying a burden of trauma. So, okay, great. Oh, and of course, protesting, marching for a common cause, it feels so gratifying because it's that magic trick we just talked about. Okay.
Tomorrow at the Common.
Sorry?
Big march tomorrow at the Common.
Oh,
12 to 2.
that's an opportunity. Yeah. Cure for human giver syndrome 1 was the magic trick, living in time with others for a shared purpose. Opportunity tomorrow. Thing number 2 is remembering who the real enemy is. And this is adapted from the book, The Hunger Games and movies. And it comes from this girl, Katniss is our heroine. She's an archer who hunts for their food. And she lives in a post-dystopian society where the capital has all of the rural regions get together and they reap, like harvest 2 children from the community to go play this like game to the death where they build an arena and just lock them in there until one person is alive. And her mentor tells her, Katniss, when you go into the arena, remember who the real enemy is. It's not the other children in there fighting for her. They have been put there just like she has. They are fighting for the same resources like she is. This artificial scarcity, this artificial creation of fear and danger. And she's at the end of the movie and she's been fighting for her life for, like an hour and a half now. Literally several days. And this guy comes out of the woods and she's got her bow drawn. She doesn't know if she can trust him. And he reminds her, Katniss, remember who the real enemy is. It's not him, the boy who's been put there also in this terrible artificial circumstance of artificial scarcity. And so she points her arrow up, not at the other person who's been forced into this, but at the arena itself, at the system that was created in order to make us believe that we have to fight each other. I love this story because it's basically just a documentary on what it's like to live in the white supremacist normative capitalistic patriarchy. It's an arena. So when we remember that we're not fighting each other for the money or for the recognition or for the job, but instead we are fighting the system that created the artificial scarcity that tells us that we're supposed to. We just, we turn toward each other with kindness and compassion, which is why the cure for burnout is not self-care. All this stuff I've been saying about sleep, physical activity, and laughter, and crying, and singing songs is only possible when we all create a space where it's acceptable. If I go into work one day and I say to my coworker, I got 9 hours of sleep last night, I feel amazing. And they say to me, oh, 9 hours, good for you. Self-care is so important. I was up till 4 baking cupcakes for Mickey's birthday party, but good for you, you got 9 hours. Self-care is so important. Now your 9 hours of amazing feel-good has become a source of stress. why the cure for burnout can never just be self-care. The cure for burnout is always caring for each other. A lot of places call it community care, and this is how we cure burnout. Here's a key tip. Somebody posted this on Instagram. I've never had the experience of somebody taking words I wrote and posting them on Instagram, but I was like, what? And then they credited my sister. Whatever. But it's true. When you feel you need more discipline, what you need is more kindness. When you think you need more grit, can I just be mad for a second about the person who started the grit research? Because it's a lie. Well, the idea that you need more grit, everyone here has so much grit. Grit is not helping you. You don't need more grit, you need help. The lie that you should just have more grit is the lie that you need to fix yourself in order to feel okay. If the system's not a good fit for you, you just have to push harder. Oh my God, no. And when you see someone bad, and when you see someone who you go, they just need more discipline. They just need to learn how to be more disciplined. Nope, that person just needs more kindness. And you see somebody who thinks, they just need more grit. Nope, 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 they need help. They need help. All of us, this is true. And we can remember it for each other. We create what I call the bubble of love. You can call it your bench or your people or your tribe. I call it the bubble of love. And yes, there's a song because of course there is. I'm gonna wait for the words to start coming up. I wanna do and be everything that the world has demanded of me. Sometimes I feel I won't deserve love, that's right, not until I'm productive enough. That's when I need supplementary help to reinforce my boundary in the bubble of love. Oh, shoot. My brain stopped working, I've been talking for too long. I want to do and be everything that the world has demanded of me. Sometimes I feel I won't deserve love, not until I'm productive enough. That's when I need supplementary help to reinforce my boundary in my bubble of love. I am enough in my bubble of love. There are people who care about my well-being as much as I care about theirs. We guard each other from outside messages, showing each other we care. 'Cause I want and like all the goals that the world has set for my goal. Sometimes I fear I don't deserve love, not until I'm successful enough. That's when I need supplementary help to mind what gives life meaning in my bubble of love. I am enough in my bubble of love. How are you doing? Because sometimes I feel like just singing it makes it easier to understand. And because we just heard 4 very wise women talking about exactly this, now you can fit it into like the larger context of the science of why this works and the experience, because we all share this thing together. So to conclude, here's the, if you're going to take a picture of a slide, this is the one. Wellness is not a state of mind or being. Wellness is a state of action. It is the freedom to oscillate through all the cycles of being human. Burnout is caused by accumulating incomplete stress cycles, getting your body stuck in the stress response. Because what happens is the world has unceasing demands of us and sets unreachable goals for us, self-contradictory goals that are inherently unreachable. So curing burnout, you gotta complete, what am I supposed to do? Hey!
To cure burnout, complete the stress response cycle
which takes help. You can't just self-care your way to curing burnout. You're going to need protection from the people around you to remind you, you deserve love, you deserve care, you deserve resources and time to do whatever you need. Hey, all these wise women, 100% guarantee none of them have spent their whole lives doing and being exactly what they described up here. Is there anybody who's like 100% been perfect the whole time? Nope, 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 nope. But guess what? Even if you've done none of these things, you still deserve love. Even if you're not gonna do any of those things, you still deserve resources and care. The world's gonna tell you that you have to get married or have kids or become a partner or graduate, that you have to do those things before your humanity counts. It's a lie. They're gonna tell you have to be thinner, straighter, whiter, blonder, whatever it is that the world is holding up. Oh, I know what the ideal is. White supremacist, cis-normative, exploitatively capitalistic patriarchy. If in any way you don't conform to those ideals, the world's gonna explicitly tell you over and over again that you need to conform. You need to change to fit in order to be worthy of love and resources. It's not true. You're gonna need help being reminded of that. That's your bubble of love, your A team, your deep bench. They're the people who stand with you against the flood of lies that the world's gonna impose upon you. And recognizing that a near universal barrier to doing all the stuff that you know is good for you is the sense that you have a moral obligation to be at all times pretty, happy, calm, generous, and attentive to the needs of others. If you have ever been stopped from going to the gym because you didn't have any cute gym clothes or you didn't want to put on makeup, that's human giver syndrome telling you that you don't deserve access to a thing that's necessary for human well-being. And to defeat that human giver syndrome, 3 things. One is the instant gratification magic trick of moving in time with others, an opportunity coming up tomorrow in the Commonwealth. Remembering who the real enemy is. So when you want to lash out at the person who's also trying to get what they need, and you want to be like, no, I have to get what that is an artificially constructed scarcity. That's a lie. Because the people in power want us to believe that we have to fight each other to get what they have. It's a lie. It's a lie. We all deserve what they have. And the fact that they wouldn't assume that that was true is an incorrect assumption. That's wrong. So the bubble of love, of course, you're always going to default to this. They're your people, your tribe, the ones who tell you and remind you about the lies, about the incorrect assumptions about what you have to do and be before you deserve love and resources and time and sleep and physical activity and access to the things that keep your humanity going. So in short, the cure for burnout is not self-care. The cure for burnout is all of us caring for each other. And I feel like we've done a little bit of that today. Yes, just feeling a little bit good.
What a treat, right?
Yeah.
Something fun, different, and new. These things, and I love your musicality and making this accessible through music was terrific. Treat. We are just grateful. Yeah, we do. We do have questions. Please do. So who wants to ask some questions about preventing burnout? For Amelia.
Hello. You had mentioned that you were in the hospital during your time.
You speak up.
Yes. You had mentioned that you were in the hospital when you were finishing your doctorate, but I wasn't clear as far as how you got out of that space. Yeah. Aside from your sister bringing you a lot of books telling you about stress relief. So could you share like your process?
So the question is, I was in the hospital induced with stress-induced illness, and how did I actually recover from that? I'll tell you one illustration of a story of a thing that happened, and that is one of the books that I had said that rage is held in the body. There's a great book now, Body Keeps the Score, about how trauma is held in the body. And me reading this line, not from that book, but this idea that emotion is held in your body, I just started sobbing because the idea that rage is in your body, all my rage from my whole life is in my body. That tore me up. And I called my sister. I was like, rage is held in your body. And she's like, you didn't know that? No. But your job, you're a conductor. You embody emotion that a composer intends. That's what you, but I didn't know that it was all the time. I thought it was just for show. No. So I relearned how my body functions. And I did it through actual practice of like turning toward my own difficult feelings with kindness and compassion, so that when I could feel a little bubble of rage, instead of instantly suppressing it, I gave it a chance to let me feel it. And it was terrible. It was really unpleasant, but it's the kind of necessary step you go through. The thing that people don't tell you is that healing hurts. So if you're way past the point where something is broken and you need to get it to knit back together, if you break your leg and then your leg heals, there is no time between those 2 points where the pain goes away. So you do the hard work of changing your relationship with your body. I recommend, if people are like, I might be burned out, what do I do? Step 1 is find something that gives you that feeling of the sun shines brighter and I'm ready for anything. And I want to tell everybody how great I feel right now. If you can find anything from the list or anything else that makes you feel that way, that means you can start relieving the stress in your body. And as that burden starts to be lightened, your body will tell you what to do next. Because what will happen is you'll give you the freedom to walk through a door in your mind, and that door will open to another room with more doors, and your body will tell you which door to go through. And the really good news is that as you start to practice it, it gets easier. It is a very long road, but it's a road that goes completely downhill, because as you get better at it, it becomes easier, and then you start to feel better, and then it gets even easier. You know what I'm saying? So it's a painful road, but it's a downhill road. Is that an answer? Is that good? Okay.
How do you know how much sleep you need?
Yeah, because most of us, our sleep needs are dictated by our schedule. Yeah. When you go on vacation, when you have an opportunity to discover, to just sleep as much as you want, log your sleep. You can also, even while the schedule is dictating your sleep, keep a sleep log, just track how many hours of sleep you got. Emily and I have Fitbits, and we text each other in the morning how much sleep we got. And it's a competition to see who got more. So we don't use our Fitbits to like compete about who got more steps. No, we compete about who got more sleep, which I think would be a great thing for everybody. But anyway, if you can track your sleep and your mood, like when you wake up, how rested do you feel? And look at how many hours of sleep you got. And if it's like you only feel rested when you get 11 hours of sleep, that probably means you're sleep deprived from the rest of the week. So however much you're sleeping during the week is not enough. There are strategies and logs and things for like tracking sleep and improving your sleep. There's plenty of resources online. Matt Walker's, if you want to know some of the science, Matt Walker's Why We Sleep is probably the best, most recent, like scientific but accessible book about sleep. If you want to sleep more, the basics are quiet, cool, and dark. You need your room to be quiet, cool, and dark. That's not true for everybody. Some people prefer a nightlight. Some people need total darkness. Some people need some white noise. I like to listen to audiobooks because it's not just kids who like to be read to sleep. And there's no shame in needing music or something else. If it's what works for you, do it. There's also issues like your chronotype. Are you a night owl or a morning early bird? I'm a night owl. So being a musician was great for that until I started teaching, and then whereas my sister is very much an early bird, and early birds have a structural advantage because early birds have the same schedule that capitalism chose. So that makes their lives way easier. If you're a night owl, trying to adapt your body to live in an early bird world is just more difficult. And then finding a way to live that gives your body the rest it needs. I could talk about sleep. Sleep is one of the things we get asked about the most. Emily started a podcast in 2019, believing that the election would be really hard. She called it the Feminist Survival Project, thinking there was going to be a lot of misogyny against Hillary Clinton in the news. And it turned out that 2020's survival project was not about that. It was a totally different thing. So there's this podcast that my sister made and I help with called Feminist Survival Project. And there are episodes about that go in more depth about everything in the book. There is a sleep episode of that. And I've already given you the Matt Walker resource, and there's plenty of resources. Okay. But yes, if there is only one thing you change to make your life a little easier when you leave here today, let it be getting more sleep. And that might need to start with just like logging your sleep and tracking your mood.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.